Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got an interesting revolver on the table. This is the Heritage Barkeep, chambered in 22 LR. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. You'll find a link that you can sign up for Big Daddy Unlimited. They actually have things in stock and usually at a lower price than other places. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. This is one of several that they've got in this particular lineup with this style. This one has the wood grips. They call this the custom wood grips. They've also got one in gray pearl handled grips, so you can have a pearl handled revolver, and they've also got a variant with the US flag. This one is what they call the 2-inch, which is actually 2.68 inch barrel. There's also a 3-inch version, which is actually a 3.6 inch barrel, so you got marketing versus the technical specs. But all of them are chambered in 22 LR. And all of them in this particular lineup are designed to be able to support 22 Magnum if you get the 22 Magnum cylinder. I do have one on the way. Between when we filmed this video and actually went to release it, the cylinder that was ordered for this came in. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this cylinder is made by Heritage for this gun. The gun is rated for it. I think the only reason they don't ship it that way is, as actually in the box with it, is to keep the price down. But on one side is the Indian head, and if I flip it over, you'll see that same Indian head. And this is basically reminiscent of a buffalo nickel. But if I cycle it, now you'll have the buffalo. If I turn it the right way, there's the buffalo. And that buffalo will also be on the other side. And they have them in a number of different styles. But with this, the gun is designed as a convertible and fully supported by the manufacturer as a convertible. The cylinder is just optional if you want it, and again, I think just to keep the price down. Didn't change the mechanical accuracy of the gun. It's still kind of difficult to shoot because of the blackout sights, and the gutter and blade. But we'll attach a little range footage shooting this cylinder at the end of the video, and it functioned just as well as the original cylinder. Not all 22 LRs can tolerate 22 Magnum, but this line can, and they specifically state that, but it doesn't come with the cylinders. So it effectively becomes a convertible. Now these things you see here, these are inert dummy rounds. They're designed to protect the firing pin because this is rimfire. So this is not live ammo. In fact, you can even see they're hollow at the back. And if you're going to dry fire 22, of course you'd want to protect the firing pin. Most 22s cannot tolerate dry fire, some can. So let's talk about this a little bit. It is a small little gun. They call this one the Barkeep. So, if you're in the Old West and you're a saloon keeper or a faro dealer and some hombre comes in and starts causing some trouble, you might have something like this in your vest pocket. Of course, today in the modern world, you'd have an LCP or an LC9 or any of the number polymer wonders. But things like this were the concealed carry of that era. Of course, this is a modern gun, despite using a far less modern design as far as the loading gate. So you flip this gate open, you put the gun to half cock, and you can rotate the cylinder. In this case, I'm inspecting all 6 cylinder chambers to make sure they're empty, so this is an unloaded gun. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load it with these snap caps, these inert dummy rounds. And the way you would do that is load it, rotate, load it, rotate, and you just kind of go through that, loading each chamber as you go. So one thing that's important to note with a 22 is you always want to load all chambers, even if you load them with a snap cap, because you don't want the hammer to fall on an empty chamber. And then you close the loading gate. At this point, if these were live rounds, I would be almost ready to fire. It's a single action, so I do have to bring the hammer all the way back. And an important note, you notice this kind of little weird thing here. This is actually a thumb safety. And that's kind of unusual on revolvers. In the flip down position where you can see a little bit of red in the pin, it's in the fire position. In the flip up, it is in the safe position. It will still go through the motions of firing even if you have it safe, it just won't go off. But in the down position, the gun would then fire. So let's talk about the trigger. It's a single action trigger and it's that short. I actually went to go do the take up and ended up firing the gun. So I'm going to bring it back again. So I'm going to put my finger on it, and I am right on the wall. A little bit of tension and a light crisp breaks, 4 poundish hammer. and very, very short. So like most single actions, it has a wonderful, nice, smooth trigger. Now, if I had it cocked back and I happened to have the safety on, it would still go through the motions, but it wouldn't actually fire. And it's not a good idea to do this a lot with this gun because you're hitting a bar up there that goes associated with the safety. It also does have a partially cocked position. And in this position, it's not going to fire. The trigger is inoperable. The gun will not rotate, so you don't have to worry about it getting out of time. But at this point, the hammer cannot hit the firing pin. So it's part of the drop safety of the gun. In this position, it is safe to carry. Bring it a little further back, and now it unlocks the wheel, which would allow me to load it, unload it, do whatever I want to do. Now, talking about unloading, to unload it, you flip open the loading gate. Most single actions have a little bit. Now, in this case, it kind of unloaded itself, came out of there on its own. Once you've fired around, it tends to swell a little bit, and you generally have to push them out. So back after the distraction of the self-unloading round, there's usually a rod here that you would use to unload it. But with this barrel this short, there's really no room for it. It would actually proceed past the barrel. So what they do is they provide you with this little rod to unload it. And you can easily do that. Now it has already unloaded, but you can easily do that by coming in at an angle. And of course I'm going to have to tilt up a little bit to see it. But if you come in from the side like this, you don't have to get your finger near the muzzle. And you unload it, the rod would just come through. And that would just push the round out. So even if the case swells a little bit and it doesn't want to come out on its own, you're going to be able to easily get it. I'm going to put that snap cap back. Overall, these are fun guns. They're older technology. This one has really nice grips, has this case hardened look. It's not truly case hardened, but it does have that look of case hardening, which gives you kind of a varying texture of the look of the gun. Under the studio lights, it tends to look pretty much all silver, but in normal lighting, you'll see that there's some gold and some blue and a little bit of various different hues that go along with the case hardening style. And of course, the bottom part of it is black. The barrel and the cylinder are black. So let's talk about the barrel for a second. It is black. It does have a bit of a crown. You'll see that there's a kind of a nice concave crown in there, which you wouldn't expect on a gun in this category. And then it looks like some lawyer got busy with all the writing on the barrel, and it's actually kind of hard to read. As I tilt it around, you'll see the Heritage Barkeep 22 cal and keep empty chamber under hammer. That's typical of single actions despite having the half-cock safety feature. And notice it says 22 cal, not 22 LR, and that's because it can shoot 22 Magnum if you have the appropriate cylinder. And the cylinder, you'll see this one is labeled 22 LR. There's also a few different cylinders available with different icons and logos on them. There's one that has an Indian head, like you'd see on the Buffalo Nickel. That's the one that I ordered for the 22 Magnum. But it's got a lot of cool features for what is actually, in modern day, a really fun range gun. So you might think with some of these features, it would be an expensive little revolver. It's actually not. These things have an MSRP of $198.33. Yeah, I know the odd number. For all that matters, it's got an MSRP of under $200 for what turns out to be a really fun gun to shoot. Now there is one negative, and that's common with these, the sights, or really kind of the lack thereof. It's got a blade that sticks up pretty good, but the actual on-target position is that. So where the curvature of the top of the revolver and the curvature of that blade kind of fit in. So you see there's really not a lot of room for error, and that black blade kind of just disappears from view. So it is difficult to lock the sights in. The gun has good mechanical accuracy. It wasn't spewing rounds all over the place, but it's hard for you to do your part of it. I'll probably paint a little white dot on the front of that sight, or on this side of the sight, to make it a little easier to pick it up. But it is pretty much a gutter and blade, and the sights, of course, they're all molded into it. They're part of the gun, so there's no changing the sights. And the only other thing that you'll have is if the hammer is all the way down, it obscures the sights to the point that they're not usable. But of course this is a single action, so you can't fire it from this position anyway. You have to cock the hammer. And talking about the hammer, it's got some nice checkering on the hammer. The gun's size makes it really easy to catch it with your thumb, so you can do it with your firing hand or your support hand. And with the gunslinger style flare of the grip, it fits into your hand. It is kind of a three-finger grip. Now, one negative that you might look at is that my thumb knuckle is right up on the trigger guard, so it's kind of pressed up against it. But this is a 22. The gun doesn't go anywhere when you fire it. Even with Magnum, it won't hit you. If this were a 44 or 357, I'd probably have some unpleasantries going on with that finger. But in a 22, it's fine. And if you kind of shift your grip around, you can kind of get it where it's on the flat of your finger and doesn't touch you at all. Also, that'll depend on the size of your hands. It's a comfortable gun to shoot. It's a fun gun to shoot. It's a fun gun to have, and it's kind of cool to look at. So you're getting a lot of capability and a lot of features for a $200 revolver. I'm going to give you a little bit of a better look at the grip. You're going to see it's actually well fitted. The gaps are nice. There's the base. And then if I bring it around, the back strap, really nice, well done, well integrated grips. So it's a nice looking thing, and even at this price point, they've done a good job of doing it well. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to take it apart. So to take it apart, I'm going to bring it to the half cock position where the cylinder rotates freely. And there's two parts I have yet to talk about. There's this button, and then there's this pin. Now, of course, you want to unload it. So in this case, they're snap caps. They're going to come out relatively easy on their own. If not, I'd have to get that little rod and unload it. But you want to see all 6 cylinders, or all 6 chambers, because you are going to be messing around up here, so you need to make sure it's unloaded. You're going to push this button from the right-hand side. You'll see I'm pushing it this way. And then when you've got this button pushed, you can pull this out. And it's kind of a two-handed affair. You pull this rod out, and then the cylinder will flip forward. And of course, I had the loading gate open. And then I've got the cylinder in my hand. Clean the cylinder, clean the barrel. Now, most guns you want to clean from the breech towards the muzzle, but in these revolvers, it's near impossible to do that, so you end up cleaning it this way. But when you're all done, you want to use something, for example, I always use this little guy, to make sure that the barrel's clear of all obstructions, and I'll also show you that it is well machined, nice and smooth, well done. And then to reassemble, it's a little trickier. But before I do that, since I have the cylinder in my hand, this is the end facing the forcing cone, well machined and smooth. And then here is the chamber end. You load the rounds in. They sit flush. Of course, it's a rim cartridge, so it'll sit flush there. And then this is the drive gear that the pawl engages with to move it forward. Actually, the hand engages with to rotate the cylinder. And then here you've got your locking notches. This does seem to lock up quite well. Not that it needs to be super tight locked up, being a 22, but it will most likely stay in time. Now, to put this back together, I slide the cylinder in. This is the only part that can be a little twitchy. I put the rod in, and I'm going to push this to allow me to do so. And then you kind of have to play around with it to get the rod to go through the center hole. Surprisingly, with it turned kind of the wrong way for me to see it, I did it on the first try. But once you've done that, and it locks in place, the cylinder turns, and the gun is operable again. So, easy to live with, easy to clean, not particularly fast to load. If you were to try to use this in a defensive scenario, which I really don't recommend with 22 LR, consider yourself you got 6. You're not going to be getting this thing loaded and unloaded in any kind of a hurry. But that's not what these are used for today. These are used for nostalgia, range day fun, and just the nice look of it. At 7.95 inches overall length and 26 ounces, it's not super light, but it's also not ridiculously heavy. And in 22, whether it's Magnum or LR, it's going to absorb the recoil, making it a pleasure to shoot. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and now on Getter. Thank you.